Thank you, our professional and our student speaker, who Thomas will introduce later on, more specific. And besides that, I want to say a big thank you from O20. And some of you have already heard this introduction because you might have been at one of the other events we organized before. But a little bit about us. We are political science. You probably know about us. Besides being a normal student party that works in the councils, we also do some other activities. And one of them is Project Major, because we believe that the university could do a better job at informing us about the possibilities when it comes to specializations and making a more informed and sophisticated choice, since it's such a big choice that we have to make, maybe the biggest choice you make during your bachelor's. And that is why we think it is a great idea, and it was a great idea and an initiative to get a professional speaker who works in the field and a student who does a specialization to get not only an insight on what the course is about and what the study material is about, but also about what you can do with it after finishing your bachelor and a master's degree. So with that being said, I would like to give the word to Thomas, who is the host of tonight. And my housemate, so I'm just going to mute myself. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the international relations event of Project Major. My name is Thomas. As Dede already introduced me, I'll be moderating today's event. First off, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Anton and Camilla, but I don't think Camilla is here yet. I think she might be here for her guest speaker part. So yeah, so Anton is our student speaker. He's done the international relations specialization, and he'll be talking about that. Later on, we're going to have a Q&A where you guys have the opportunity to ask Anton any questions you might have. The way that we're going to do the Q&A is please type your questions into the chat, and then I'll read them out. Then we're going to have a quick 5-minute break. In the break, you can ask any questions you might have about O20. And then after that will be the interview with Camilla, who works in the field of IR, which will also succeed with a Q&A round. So yes, yeah. So Anton, please take it away.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. I'm just quickly gonna see if everybody can see my screen, so I'm just gonna share it now. Okay, can everybody see it, or can you confirm, Thomas?
I can definitely confirm that I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, I want to thank everybody. I don't know, I can sadly not see you because I can only see my presentation at the moment, but I want to say big thanks because I know especially today with Georgia, with Nevada, with everything happening in the United States, that I can understand that some people were not interested anymore in watching it specifically right now. So I'm like, thank you so much for just listening. I wish it was physical because I love talking face to face and answering questions. But of course, it's safer to do it this way. And I suppose that also more people were able to join because of this. Okay, so let's just begin. So I just quickly, I'm going to sketch who am I, what am I doing at the moment. So within university, of course, I'm a political science student. I'm a third year international relations specialization student. And besides that, I'm also doing the honors program, and there I take different classes on different topics. So what I've done so far is human rights and globalization, but I also had a class about the rising power of China. I did religion and conflict in a city. And right now I am doing another class concerning development studies. Besides that, I also participated in the buddy program at the UVA, and I just became one of the student ambassadors where I also ask or answer questions that any student might have. And then besides the UVA, I work in the external committee at O20. So I was also partly responsible for organizing Project Major. And I also love playing volleyball, which I sadly cannot do now because of the corona restrictions, and traveling as well, which I cannot do now. And the final thing that might be interesting is that I love languages. So I'm currently studying Portuguese. So that being said, why what helped me decide to choose international relations. So first of all, I want to say it was not the Introduction to International Relations course that everybody, I think, got in the first year already. So for me, it's also very important, you know, because I was so convinced that I wanted to do international relations. And then I was kind of questioning after that first year, like, okay, is it really what I want? Do I really always want to learn about realism, liberalism, constructivism? Is that what I want to learn, or do I want to do something else? So I think it's really important that students inform themselves. So after I talked to some third-year students last year, it really helped me decide to choose for international relations. Then besides that, of course, I'm very interested in foreign affairs, about everything that's happening in the world. And because of the international background and the connections that I make with so many different people from all over the world, it kind of stimulated me as well to do international relations. And then finally, for me, it's a very important thing to understand the bigger picture, so the macro level, which is also one of the reasons why I chose political science, because you understand very big patterns. So those were like the main elements why I chose what I chose right now. And then who excels in international relations? And of course, I just clearly want to specify that it's not only these three things. There are so many other things that are important that I could not put into a 15-minute presentation. But I think these three are of major importance. So the first one is, of course, be informed. So you have to know what's happening in the world, understand who says what are the different perspectives on certain issues. But besides that, of course, you have to do the mandatory readings, you know, like you have to be both very aware what's happening within the course, but also outside of the course, especially, which I will later elaborate on. For example, during exams, they will ask you like current events questions, and you need to apply it to what you've learned. Then the second characteristic is being opinionated. So during physical and Zoom classes, it's very important that you can formulate what you think on certain topics. It will get graded, first of all. So it's really important that you understand not only why you say what you say and what you argue for, but also try to look what the others are saying and what potential rebuttals can be in their argumentation. So it's very important as well that you're very well spoken when you're stating your opinion. And then the last element that I wrote down, which is very closely related to the informed part, but the analytic part is really the underlying structure, you know, like, for example, a person A does this, why does he do this? But what is the underlying theory behind his choice? I hope that's a little bit clear. If anybody has any questions about that, you can ask me later as well. But so I want to say, like, you have to really understand the bigger picture, not only what you can see, the treaties that are made, but also why have the treaties been made? What's the broader context? Like, that's very important that you can also understand that in international relations. So then I also wrote down being able to see the theoretical framework, being able to argue from different perspectives is also very important. Like, that's what they're definitely gonna teach you in the second year, and then you can also apply that in the third year. But I'll get into that later. Then the rough information. So the core module of international relations, which is the class that the students will get in the second year if they choose a specialization. I didn't want to go too deep into every topic. So the topics that you see on this slide right now are the topics that I got in the second year. So there are a lot of topics, and I wish I had 5 hours to elaborate on them because a lot of them are really interesting, but I also believe that that's something you have to discover yourself. However, I really want to quickly elaborate on the first two. So yeah, it is reality that you have to repeat the constructivism, the liberalism, the realism. It's a theoretical part. It was not my favorite part. It's something that I really did not like, to be honest. But because of that, you really understand the different theories, and you can apply it to all the other ones that are mentioned within this slide. And what's also very important is the second part, which is the multi-level IR. And I'm not sure if you got it in the first year or in the second year, but you need to understand as I said, the broader pattern, but also the local pattern. So international relations is not only about a state signing a treaty with another state or the European Union. It's really like, okay, so what's the impact on the local level? What's the impact on the national level, the international level, the transnational level, the regional level? So it's really zooming out a lot and try to analyze everything that's happening. And that's these two things, that's what you're going to apply to peacekeeping, terrorism, development, colonialism, human rights, like all the topics that you see there. So that's what you will mainly be doing in the second year. Then how does the second year get graded? So as you can see, this is just like the percentages and stuff, but I think it might be interesting. So you get 2 exams. In one exam, you need to write a 750-word essay, and you get some time to complete it. So the 2 essays of 750 words. And usually the topics that I had to do, it was the effect of globalization on the different theoretical perspectives. And then the second one was the assassination of Soleimani in Iran, and how that how you can have different perspectives on that. For example, what would a realist argue? What would a constructivist argue? So that's where you see that the information of the first year really comes back, because they really want you to understand that. And then the second exam is, first of all, very stressful. And I hope it changes when you have a physical exam. It was because of the coronavirus. But you get a question and you get 30 minutes to answer that question. Also, those topics, what I had to answer was, for example, the relationship between colonialism and development. That was one. Then the second one was explaining the different responses to the coronavirus. So that's where you can really see like what's happening today and what you see in class combined. And then the last one was the effect of globalization of migration, how that challenges certain perspectives. So that's for the exam part. And then a very important paper, I believe, that's 25% is your research paper, which practices you to write your thesis, because it mainly has the same structure. What I really liked about the thesis, so this was like the front page of my research paper, but what I really liked it is that you get a lot of freedom when you choose your topic. And I think that's very important, because it motivates students to really delve deeper into a topic that they're very interested in. So for example, as you can see, I wrote about the South China Sea, about the Senkaku Islands, or depends if you use the Chinese or the Japanese name, but that's a whole other topic that I'm not going into right now. And it's really preparatory for the third year, especially for your thesis. Then the 15% of the weekly written assignments. So as you probably know, you have to do a lot of readings, so also be prepared for that. And those where in the weekly written assignments, you have to criticize 2 main points that one of the authors of your reading is making. So it can be anything. It can be something very small. You can also argue for a different perspective to it, as long as it has a decent foundation. So these get graded by your tutor. If you have Sarah Poss, she's a pretty good grader, so I definitely recommend choosing for her. And the last one is 10% participation. So basically that's where you're present, where you're debating, as I already said. So that's the last 10%. Then, of course, your choice in this year also has an impact for your third year, the year that I'm in right now. So first of all, it's important to know when you look at the thesis topics that they are, wait, I just look, I don't know where exactly, oh, I accidentally have the 2 same pictures. Anyways, so I recommend you to look at the website studiehits.uva.nl, because as you can see, IR has a lot of different electives that you have to choose. You have to choose 1 6 credit and 1 12 credit, and then your thesis. It doesn't really matter what specialization you pick for your thesis, because you can do any topic. However, it is important for the other 18 credits. So these are only credits that you can take when you study international relations. If I'm looking, I took the Iran's encounters with the West. I can only talk about that one. I really liked that one. It was very interesting, but of course it depends on your own interest. And I'm also taking the conflict, security, and development, which is pretty repetitive. It talks a lot about securitization, etc. So for political science students, it's very familiar. So it depends on if you want to challenge yourself into a completely different topic, such as corporate responsibility, or if you want to be a little bit more in the safe zone and rather focus more on your thesis. So yeah, it definitely also has an impact on the third year. And if I'm correct, the international relations specialization also has the most options for the electives because it tends to be the most popular specialization. What now? Okay, tips and tricks. So what really helped me, or what would have really helped me, first of all, really save your notes from the first and the second year, especially for your third year. Because as I already said, the second year in the beginning, it's going to be repetitive, but it's going to be important. As I already said during my exam, they ask you, what are the different perspectives? How can you argue this from this specific point of view? And that's where the first and year notes are going to be really helpful. Then the second one is, of course, I'm really happy that you guys are here and that you are thinking ahead, but don't see it as something very fixed, you know, like everybody graduates with a political science bachelor. And for example, right now, my thesis is not an international relations thesis, it's a political theory thesis. So there is some margin where you can play with. It is, of course, important that you pick something that you love, but don't think that that's going to define the rest of your academic or professional career. And the last one is to challenge yourself. As I already said, please do the readings. They're very interesting, but they are also a lot, so be aware of that. Actively engage with them, not just read them, but question them as well. And that's also where the weekly assignment is really good. They really kind of force you to think critically about what you read, which is something that you do now also or what I do in other courses as well. Like, you just don't just read them, but you really start thinking about their arguments. Is it good? What would somebody else say? So that's really also something that can be very important. Just don't only read the mandatory readings, but read more and question them. So yeah, my future, first of all, is very undetermined. So as you can see, short term, so I was gonna go on exchange to China, but of course, coronavirus kind of canceled that. So I'm now looking into a minor of international development or Latin America studies at the UVA. And in February, I will also be moving to Brazil for a couple of months. Also thanks to coronavirus, so it has its benefits. And there I'm gonna try to do a BRICS course or works for the BRICS Policy Center as an intern. And then midterm, so I'm also, of course, looking for a master's right now. So I'm looking at international development or international relations. Those are the two possible options for me, but I'm also getting more and more interested in international security. But of course, as I said, still to be determined. And then long-term, that's where I really have like very little knowledge about yet. Like ideally, of course, it'll be more like diplomacy or lobbying, international NGOs, like many other international relations students. So yeah, that's a little bit how I would see my ideal future, at least. So yeah, I hope I kept it under 20 minutes. So if there are any questions, please ask them. I think it's very important to ask questions. And yeah, I wish it was physical, but it has to be this way now. But I hope it kind of helped you. So yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Antoon. That was very, very insightful. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, if you guys have any questions, please type them into the chat. I'll start off with a question. What's been your least favorite part of the specialization? what do you think could have been
I
better
think the
there?
least favorite part was the very like the repetitive part of the second year. I would say it is kind of essential, the repetitive part, but you know, like you have seen it, and at a certain point you're like, Jesus Christ, why am I doing this again? You know. But at the end, I'm kind of grateful for it, because it is very important that you know them. You know, it's kind of embarrassing if you're a third year student and you don't know how you can argue from different perspectives, or which theories are more prominent where. So it is kind of repetitive, the beginning of the second year class, but it has its purpose.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So our first question comes from Viraj, and he says, what are the lectures like?
So I suppose you're referring to the second year lectures. So the lectures, they're pretty good. There are two professors. I forgot the names, but one is an Austrian lady, and one is a guy. And I think the guy was also a first year professor, but I'm not 100% sure. And what I really like the girl, because she's very interactive. Even when there was no corona yet, when we were in the lecture hall, she was really interactive. She made like, what is it called again? Like those polls, and you need to type a code and then you can vote. And it was kind of like in a quiz form as well, to see the knowledge of the people. So that I really liked. And then the tutorial, I was really lucky as well, I think, because I really have a good connection with my tutor. And what happens in the tutorial is you deeply discuss the readings. They give you exercises. They challenge you to think more critically about the topics. And of course, that's also where you write your papers, where you do the weekly assignments. So that's the main purpose of the tutorials.
Okay. Yeah. So we move on to Paulina. Paulina asks, why do you personally choose this specialization over others?
That's a good question. First of all, I don't want to, just because it's IR, I don't want to imply that the other specializations are worse, because I didn't do them, and everybody else of my friends who do a different specialization are highly satisfied with them. So I did the specialization of international relations is because I also talked to a third year student about the topics. So also the topics that I mentioned in the PowerPoint slides, and those are very macro level problems, and that's what I'm mainly looking for. You know, I'm looking at migration, I'm looking at global value chains, I'm looking at also at COVID-19, I'm looking at war, terrorism. Those are all topics that I really enjoy, not only learning about in an academic setting, but also when you read the news outside. Like, it's also, those are very interesting topics to develop a certain argument for, or with your friends. So that's the main reason why I chose my specialization.
Okay, thank you. We move on to the next question, which is from Dede, and he's asking, what is the skill most central to this specialization?
I think that there are a lot of skills that are very important, but I think that developing a solid argument and being able to develop an argument from a different perspective is very important. For example, everybody has their own opinion and they have a well-structured argument, or at least most of them are. But it's also very important to know what the other would say. And then, because if you know that, they can already think about, okay, but how can you counter the problem? Like, how can you counter this perspective? And then you start to make like a balance, like, okay, so because they want you to develop arguments from a different perspective, it also questions your own, you know. But I think being able to develop this critical debate skill, this argumentation skill, is something very important during the course. Also in essays, of course, creating and developing, but I suppose that's very important for every specialization as well.
The next question comes from Lara, and Lara asks, what mistakes did you do when you first started off that we can avoid?
That's a good question. What was a mistake that I made when I first started off that we can avoid? I would say as also like one of my tips and tricks, like I wouldn't necessarily call it a mistake, but really try to save your notes, because I know a lot of people who didn't really know what we were talking about, because there's this point in the second year where they're going to be like, okay, yeah, we've elaborated on this in the first year. And then some people are like, oh, like shit, like I don't have my notes anymore. I don't have time to do the extra readings of the first year. So that's something that can really help students by just simply saving it on their computer. And if they have a question or they don't understand anything about it, they can easily just bring it up again, read a couple of pages about it, and then they can go deeper into the second year subjects.
Next, we have Daniel, and he is asking, what is your thesis about?
I have to say though, my thesis started a month ago, but I'm writing about, so the topic of or the theme of the bachelor's thesis that I chose is democratic theory, because it was very broad and I'm also interested in that. So what I'm writing about now is about Brazil's racial democracy, and more specifically about how affirmative action does not work in universities of Brazil. So that's the big line, and I wish I could tell you more about it, but it's a lot for 5 minutes. But that's the main topic: democratic theory, and then Brazil.
Okay, we have another question from Lara, and she's asking any internship suggestions, and what would it be best to, and when would it be best to do them?
Internship suggestions. That's a very difficult question for me to answer. First of all, because I've never done a hands-on internship concerning international relations in Amsterdam. However, for the second part of the question, when would it be best to do them? I suggest that people do them as soon as they can. Like, don't wait for your specialization if you already have an offer. Because that's something that people really look at, and it's something that I also think is very important. That's also why I'm applying to research centers in Brazil as well for the second semester. And that's something that also I regretted a little bit the most of my bachelor's so far, is that try to do more, just things that are interesting for you, you know, like if you see a nice internship and you have the time, just do it. Don't wait for the third year, because those are also things that can count for credits. I don't know if people know that, but if you do an internship in the second year and you coordinate that with the UvA, they can also count, you know, so don't miss those opportunities. Okay,
the next question I believe is from Andrea. And she's asking, we understand that you had to develop critical insights and analysis of the fundamental issues societies face. What are your favorite platforms / journals you recommend for people to broaden their perspective?
Okay, I like that one. So first of all, since I did political science, and I don't know if I can thank IR for that, but since I did political science, I've been also very critical for the things that I read, you know. So one very common one, I suppose, that I read is the New York Times. And what's very noticing now is that it's actually more biased than people want to believe it is, you know. So because I started reading more and more in the New York Times, and I think that they're very insightful, I also started reading Al Jazeera now. Because they also tackle very important issues, or what I also think are very important, about the Middle East, about Africa, about Asia. Like it's, I think those two, for me at least, are two very interesting platforms for me to read about. But also, I don't know if you know Politico, but that's also sometimes that I see pop up a lot, and they're actually very qualitative as well.
Okay, thanks for your answer. And then finally, we have a question from Jacob, and he's asking, is there a way for political participation in Amsterdam, also if you're not Dutch, maybe a way to gain experience?
Of course, like I believe that there's always a way to politically participate, whether it be formal or informal. So I don't know if I suppose you're looking for formal. However, like Amsterdam gives a lot of opportunities, but try to look outside of Amsterdam as well. For example, The Hague, because that's basically the political capital of the Netherlands. And I know that there is a friend of mine who did an internship in the International Criminal Court. So of course, I believe that there is a way of political participation in Amsterdam, but try to look at other hotspots as well. So I'm mainly talking about, of course, Amsterdam, but I'm also talking about The Hague. You know, those are two big ones where you can definitely look deeper into.
All right. Also adding on to Anton's answer, this event is organized by O20, which is a student party, which actually leads on to our next part of this, which is the break. Dede, who's sitting right next to me, he's going to answer questions, any questions you might have about O20. The break is going to be 7 minutes, so we're going to start again at 6:10. Yeah, see you then.
I also quickly want to say that I added my email for those people who have questions after the presentation, so they can always just contact me through that. And yeah, I think that's it for my part.
Thank you, Antoon, for your time. Thank you for coming here.
You're welcome.
So yes, as Thomas has said, if there's any questions about this event, about us being O20 or about anything else, feel free to stick around in the break and ask us a question. Or if you rather go get a drink or whatever, of course, that is also fine, because that's what the break is all about. Are you joining us, Antoon, for the second part?
Of course, as long as I can. I have another class in 25 minutes, but I'll stay as long as I can.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you told us. That's right. But am I, Antoon, maybe you know this actually, but are you able to vote for the municipality, Amsterdam municipality, if you're an international but have a BSN?
I don't know if I can. I know that everybody who lives in Amsterdam can vote for like the water legislation, I think.
Waterstaat, yeah, waterschap.
Yeah,
waterschapverkiezingen? I forgot the Dutch word even.
Yeah, but I have a different type of housing contract, so it also depends if you're formally registered.
Anti-squatter.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a question from Daniel, or Daniel, depending if he's Dutch or not. Will you organize Zooms about the other majors as well? Well, we have. This is the third one already. Last week we have done both comparative politics, and we did PPG, public policy. We will still do political theory. If you want, like, you can check on our Instagram, o20.nl, to see the dates and the speakers for that. We will also upload on our YouTube at the end. When we've had all the events, we will upload the student speakers parts on YouTube. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
All right, so welcome back. Hope you had a good break. So next up, we're going to have the interview with Camilla. So yes, as I mentioned earlier in the introduction, it's going to start off with the interview. It's about 40 minutes, and then everyone's going to have around 20 minutes to ask questions. If you have questions anytime during the interview, feel free to put them into the chat, and I will read them out during a Q&A. Okay, so can everyone see the screen? I have put up a slide. Okay, I see Anton shaking his head, nodding his head, so I guess we're good. Okay, so Camilla, are you there?
I'm definitely here.
Hi, how are you?
Good. A bit nervous, of course. You guys, everything is fine?
Everything is good. Everything's good. I saw you came in halfway through Anton's presentation. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah. I'm sorry that I didn't start from the beginning, but you know, work.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Okay. Yeah. So to start off, I want you to introduce yourself a bit. We could start off with what you're currently working, where you're currently working, and a bit about your previous job history. I have a slide up with that information, but if you would like to quickly just briefly explain it, that would be nice.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Guten Abend in Dutch. Greetings from Brussels. First of all, I really wanted to thank the organizers for convening such an interesting event, and also the students that are in the audience for taking the time to attend and participate in this discussion. I hope really everyone is fine, especially due to Corona. It's really, we are living in really challenging times, I would say. But in any case, my name is Camilla Contorni. I'm 27 years old and I come from Italy, as you can probably understand already. More specifically, I come from the northeast of Italy. I come from Padova, which is, let's say, 30-40 minutes distant from Venice. I'm a junior policy officer at the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. And from now on, I will just refer to it as UNODC. And I'm here today to tell you a little bit about my journey, my story, my experience. And hoping that this contribution will help you make a good and resonated choice for your future career and really for your studies. As you can see in the slide, I did quite so many jobs. I mean, basically internships. Before applying for UNODC as an intern, I had already 1 year of professional experience. Thanks to other internships, for example, at UNICEF in Padova, at the EU delegation to the UN in Rome, and at the Italian embassy in Estonia. Is in this slide, you can see that I have a master's degree at the University of Bologna in International Relations and Diplomatic Affairs, obtained in 2018. And this is really something, in a nutshell, what is my story and what is my portfolio, let's say.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so I'd like to take it first off to the beginning. What got you interested in international relations?
It's a difficult question, I would say. I've got interested in international relations because initially I wanted to become a diplomat, work in an embassy somewhere in the world, and represent my country abroad. In general terms, I was always, as a student, I mean, I always loved history. I had a predisposition for mediation, at least that's what they say. And I also always loved traveling, getting to know different cultures, peoples, population, habits. Then at high school, I got involved in an association called European Youth Parliament, which among many other activities also provide a forum for young people to discuss about major topics, international topics related to politics or, social issues, whatever. But the way of doing it was really through a simulation of a plenary session of the European Parliament. Basically, what you had to do was to be part of a thematic committee together with other people coming from other regions and partners and countries. Sorry, and you had to debate on major topics, try to adopt a resolution or not adopt them. The whole thing was to share ideas, making new friends or discussing all together about something really, issues that were really important. At the beginning, I got engaged in this association quite randomly, I would say, but then I started to really enjoy it. And I got interested in the dynamics of the world that we were in a way simulating. And from this comes the crazy idea of becoming a diplomat, I would say. And that's why I got interested in international relations. I thought that was the perfect, faculty or major, as you say, to direction my professional interests.
Is your long-term goal still to return to working in the Italian embassies, or are you planning on building a career through the UN?
No, I don't want to. I don't want to become my short to medium long-term objective. Especially with my internship at the Italian embassy in Estonia, which was really, formative. It was really interesting, but that experience made me open my eyes. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to work in an international environment. And so I would say for the future, I want to continue working within the UN, hopefully within UNODC. And let's see, of course, I don't have anything planned, but, or I don't want to plan anything also. But let's see. But I don't think diplomacy will be like, part of that.
If I may ask a question, could you let us know why you ended up not wanting to have a career in diplomacy?
Well, because I experienced other, I mean, you could see from the slide before, or I don't see the slide anymore, so I guess it's not there anymore. But in any case, I did other kind of internships. For example, the one that really contributed to shape an idea of what I wanted to do was the internship at the EU delegation in Rome to the UN-based UN agencies. So, for example, FAO, WFP, IFAD. So to experience this kind of international dynamics, to experience the exchange, the mediation between a lot of partners, the multi-stakeholder platforms was something that for me was really precious during that time, because I was just a student. But it was something that opened my mind, and I thought, okay, there's not just Italy on the table as kind of opportunities. I want to experience something more international. Again, getting to know new people, cultures, and then specifically because I didn't want to. I mean, I don't get me wrong, but I'm quite naive, or I respect my ideals, and I don't want to compromise it. I don't want to compromise my values for anything. So I thought this was the best way.
So is it fair to say that you preferred an organization to the UN over something like diplomacy because you thought you would have a larger impact, as well as the international experience behind working in the UN?
Yeah, definitely. Don't get me wrong, diplomacy is also applicable to the UN. It's not something unrelated, definitely is. But the bilateral kind of diplomacy is not something that interested me that much. And yes, you can get a major impact through the UN, for example, through an international organization. At least this is my opinion. And just the platform at the UN is what the UN are able to do, and how the UN are able to change the world. This is something that I am fascinated about.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to take this back though to education. I wanted to ask specifically about your study. What knowledge or skills that you received from university do you think is the most applicable to what you're doing now?
So I think basically the analytical skills, research, capacity of doing research, and about ability to make connections between topics. Definitely, I do an example, and I will talk about something more in practical terms now. For example, I do remember that during my master degree, we were assigned to teams for a project with the aim of developing some research or presentation around some specific topics. Depending on the course. I remember one in particular because it was difficult but also interesting at the same time. It was for a course called Economics of Inequalities, really interesting course. But we were asked to elaborate on the role of income generating activities in a rural area in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan. So you can really imagine something so specific. I didn't know anything about that. And this exercise taught me actually to work in a team, to carry on research on a specific issue with the available tools, to follow a project, respecting deadlines, to present your work in a quality way, and also be examined for it. So meaning to be able to be respond to questions about it. And these are all major skills that still continue to be at the basis of what I do now. And so are major capacities. Concerning the knowledge of what I acquired during my studies, I won't say that I remember everything. I don't remember some dates, formulas, names, events, concepts. It's impossible, trust me. But what I can really count on is on my general knowledge. At the end, I think international relations in comparison with other subjects is quite specific, but still really general. And but I think nevertheless that a general overview of a past and present event can be really something instrumental. And if you have also the ability of making connections, between topics, you're good to go.
Okay, fantastic. So then what you're saying is the most applicable thing that you've gotten from university then would be the soft skills behind the study. Okay, that's nice, which actually helps us a bit to the next question, which was what advice would you give to a student who is thinking about this specialization or is currently doing? So what I mean by advice is maybe something they can do next to the study, or how they can take use the study to the fullest. Yeah.
Okay, I have many advices. One is connected to something that Anton said before. Try to match your knowledge and your education with some practical experiences. So during your years as students, combine your study with internships, trainings, workshop, as much as you can in the field of your preference, of course. This is not just giving you a great and concrete idea of what is what is really all about international relations in reality, but it's also building up your CV, and it's never too early to start build up your CV. This is a really specific and concrete one. More in general, I would say enjoy your time as a student, because when the responsibility will come, it's not funny. But in any case, apart from jokes, I really would like that students will cherish the time as students. I think it's really important to never stop learning. Don't be afraid of wanting to learn more, to ask more questions to the professor. And don't be afraid also of finding a particular aspect of international relations that you want to specialize yourself on. Actually is really important. As I said, international relations, it's really a general field, and sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, and you have to be a bit more specific in your choices and decisions. Again, don't think too much about the dates, learning by heart, all this kind of thing. Think about something, about the reasoning behind about the process behind a fact, about the reasons why a fact happens at the end. And lastly, don't care about other people's opinion, because I don't know you guys, but when I was younger, everyone said to me, like, don't take political science or international relations because you're not gonna go anywhere. But I am the example that, you can get a concrete career after your studies.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned internships. In regards to internships, what organizations do you recommend getting internships from? Where do you find internships, and how was your experience? How was your experience in getting the internships that you have gotten in the past?
Yeah. Okay. I can't really suggest any international organizations. Let's say it depends on you, really, on your predisposition. I wanted to do something more on international and on an international environment. But you can also do the same in an NGO or maybe in a private sector. It does, or in an academia. It doesn't matter where you go, basically, if you're doing something that you love. Of course, if you are interested in UN, go apply, and it will be rewarding in a way. Of course, there are some bad consequences, not bad consequences, but let's say drawbacks for that. For example, you're unpaid for many of the entry-level jobs. I wanted to refer to my experience now. Basically, all the internships that I did were unpaid. And so I was able to, go through them just because I had some money aside, and because my family, of course, supported me. And for that, I will be ever thankful. But don't be afraid of just trying, as Antoon said. Just try, just apply sometimes. Don't pose yourself too many questions. Don't elaborate on that too much. Don't overthink. I know, for example, the European Union now has changed its policy and is paying the internships, both at the Parliament or at the Commission. So that can be something, a good start for everyone, I would say.
With internships, yesterday you touched upon a bit with LinkedIn building. I wanted to ask you, how do you see, what are your suggestions on LinkedIn building, and how do organizations use that? Do the organizations look at it when you apply to internships and jobs? And how important do you see it in the world of IR?
LinkedIn is definitely important. Is a way is a platform for jobs, for creating your network. It's definitely important because you can check for the specific organization that you love and you are interested in. You can check for available opportunities. It's something definitely important. Everyone is using. It's not just for junior positions. I know many people that now are looking for jobs, and I mean, during Corona, it's complicated to, of course, everything is more complicated, but I mean, everyone goes there to check. There are, of course, other platforms. It depends also on where you go and where you want to, work. Some are more, national or focused on a country. Some are more international. But that LinkedIn is definitely important.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. I wanted to ask you, a lot of people in the field of international relations stress the fact about picking up another language. Have you engaged in that? I saw on your LinkedIn that you speak about 5-6 languages. So you've definitely engaged in that. How do you see it? And is there a specific language you would recommend for someone who, let's say, would like to work in the UN?
Yeah. Okay. Definitely language is something really, really important. In general, I would say the capacity of speaking and writing well. You can be amazed about how important it is to express yourself well. If you have a great idea, but you're not able to convey the message, basically that idea is useless. Or at least this is the the perception in the work environment. And speaking foreign languages is definitely important, at least to be able to speak 3 languages in a fluent way is recommended. I would say, especially, of course, English is the vehicular language. I would say also French is pretty much important, but again, it depends on what you want to do in your life. Also, Spanish is pretty much important. As you know, French and Spanish are the most spoken language in the world. So if you try and learn them, I think you have more opportunities in comparison with others, and you can cover, more areas of the world. So, for example, for you, won't be a problem to apply for a job in Latin American if you know Spanish. And for other people, of course, will be a problem. But definitely languages are really much important. And but it's never too late in any case. I have older colleagues that have some struggles with languages, but they can, don't think that, it's too late for you. Don't think about that. It's always good to try to speak your language, to improve in your speaking or in your writing. It's always good, and there is always time.
Okay, thank you. The next question, this is a different one. What do you dislike about the field of international relations? So maybe something you personally dislike, or something you dislike overall about the whole field?
Well, as I was saying, was connected to something that I said before. Something that I really hate about this word is that is discriminatory. I don't come from a rich or privileged family. I just obtain everything that I have now with my efforts and support of my loved ones. But the discrimination comes, especially at the entry level, if the opportunities of internships are unpaid or not paid enough. Trust me, to go through, to take on those expenses, it's pretty much difficult. My first 9 months of internship at UNODC, as I said before, were unpaid, and it was a sacrifice. So this is something that I hate, because many people in many parts of the world don't have the capacity of supporting and taking on those expenses. You don't have the necessary resources, speaking really about money in this case. And so your dream about becoming a diplomat, because of course this is something that they don't tell you, you have to have a kind of a basis for that. You have to have some resources for that, for your studies, for internships and whatever. They don't tell you about that. And many people are left aside. And this is something that I don't like.
How were you able to overcome these factors?
Well, a lot of sacrifices, really. As I said before, I will be ever thankful for the opportunities that I got, but especially to my parents, that they did almost all the job. They supported me. And sometimes was difficult. I had some money put aside, but of course you cannot cover the expenses of living in another country, living there, eating there, having a life there, because of course you want to have also a social life. Sometimes I know that university can cover many or a big part of these expenses, and this is good. But yes, depends. It's not easy.
Are there any mistakes you've had when you transitioned from education to the job market that you would like to let us know and to avoid?
Yeah. Of course. First of all, they don't tell you that it's quite hard. I would say that I transitioned from my student life to a professional life in a naive way, because I remember at the end of my master degree, the professors used to tell us, like, you are the best, you can go through everything, you are prepared for work, and for taking all the opportunities and all the jobs in the world that will arise to you, will arise in front of you. It's not true. That's the thing. It's not entirely true. It's not that you graduate and you will be offered a job. It's not like this. And I graduated with the maximum of grades. I don't want to brag, but it's true. And so that was my mistake. I thought it was quite easy to find a job almost immediately, and actually took quite some time. I graduated in March 2018, and I got a job in October 2019. So yes, the first 2 months I took it as a pause, because I needed to recharge a bit my batteries. I was extremely tired, but yeah, it's not that easy, especially if you want a paid job, if you want a specific kind of job. That is not easy. At the beginning, you have to a bit compromise, I guess, or at least this was my experience. Maybe some others will be a bit more lucky. I don't know.
So would you recommend starting to look for jobs a few months before you graduate in order to secure something earlier, or is this something that everyone's just gonna experience?
No, definitely. You as Anton said, as soon as you find something that you like, even if you're the first year of your bachelor, or I don't know, just apply and do it as soon as possible, because maybe you can think that I have a long resume, but I know people that are really more experienced than me and have the same age. We are peers. So it's not something, just start as soon as you can, and it's not sad that you will experience the same problems that I experienced in the past. Maybe you will be offered a job almost immediately. For me, it was a bit more difficult, maybe because I had a precise idea of what I wanted, and then I had to compromise a bit, but then not even that much at the end. So, it depends on the personal experience.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it for me. Now we're going to move on to the Q&A round. I see that we already have a question from Julia. She asks, as a policy consultant, did you feel like a public policy specialization would have helped you better than international relations?
No, not necessarily. Maybe, again, in my opinion and based on my experience, not necessarily. They say that basically one of the best way to learn about something is by doing it, and I totally subscribe that. So, for example, I didn't have really a background on security before. I had some courses on focus on security, but I didn't have that much focus on that. I didn't have that much interest or attention on that. And then when I arrived in Brussels and I started to, focus about terrorism, cybercrime, maritime crime, corruption, that was really beyond my knowledge. And you just learn when you're there. You just understand what to do. You just learn about the subject you're working on when you're actually working on them, and it's the best way. For example, an example of what I do as policy analysis and coordination. In more concrete terms, what I do normally is, in general terms, I focus my attention mostly on the EU, on the European Union, especially Commission. So what I normally do, the policy documents published by the EU on a thematic for example, drugs trafficking. And then I try to capture the most of it and see whether our strategies and policy documents are aligned or are consistent with the position taken by the EU and vice versa. From what derives from this is an analysis that our colleagues can use, for example, during the meetings or to advocate for a project or, I don't know, a specific activity. And this is something I was lucky of, studying international relations, and this really was enough for me to perform my job, my actual job.
All right. Thank you. That's actually a question I also appreciated the answer to. Yeah, so we move on to Emilia. Is that true? And if so, how do you experience working in IR?
Okay, this is really a good question. Thank you, Emilia. Okay, don't doubt yourself, never. As a woman, as a girl, never. It's true that there is a kind of a domination, let's say, of guys, but in my office, at least in Brussels, we are 80% women. So, I mean, I don't, of course, I don't want to generalize everyone. I don't want to discriminate on gender. I don't care about gender, really. It depends on your merit. I'm really, I really support merit, and you have to learn and grow just thanks to your merit. So yes, it's a bit complicated because sometimes you can see that many secretary or administration jobs are taken by women, but it doesn't mean anything. First of all, it's not something, there's nothing wrong with that, to take a specific kind of job. But then again, it's who cares? I mean, you see the president of the European Commission is a woman. Nothing can stop you, really. So don't be worried about that. Don't be afraid, and just go through just keep on believing yourself and keep on following your road, your path, and who cares about anything else, really?
Okay. Right. The next question is from Viraj, and he asks, was there a difference between the work culture ethic at the embassy in Estonia and the UN? If so, how did you deal with that?
Okay. Thank you again for the questions. Really interesting, these questions. So difference in between the work culture and ethic? No, I don't think so. Again, there is a difference in the way of working because at the UN you have to deal with different cultures and different habits, and you cannot discriminate on them. You have to be accepting them, and actually that's one of the best parts of the work, to know new cultures, new people coming from all over the world. That is something, but it's more showing in at the UN than maybe at my back then at the job that I have at the embassy in Estonia. Of course, even to relate to Estonians, I remember the first time I was a bit scared because I've never been in Estonia, first of all, and I didn't know exactly what to expect. But at the end, people were really great. And I'm speaking about the embassy in general. My colleagues were really great and really, cheerful. And there's no difference. It's just that at the UN or more international organizations, there are more cultures, and this can cause a bit of misunderstanding sometimes. But the dialogue is always the best part. So. Be open and have a dialogue with your colleagues if there is kind of a misunderstanding, because sometimes it's just the culture, or it's just something not related to you. So that's the only difference, I would say.
Okay, thank you. The next question comes from Dede. He asks, is it easy to move up the ladder? I guess he means the ladder within the UN. And second, is it easier to find a job in diplomacy or in the UN/international organizations?
Okay, to move up, I guess to grow in that sense. In that case, it's easy because it's one of the nice part of the field of working in general in the UN. In 2 years that I've been based in Brussels, I started as an intern, then I had a job as an individual contractor. Now I have another contract, UNV, but I have more responsibilities than at the beginning. So it's easy to grow if you show that you can take it, that you can take the responsibilities, that you're ready for it. Of course, it depends also on ancienity, so on years of experience, but normally it's quite easy to grow and to take on more responsibilities, but it depends only on you. And the second part of the question was okay, it's not easy at all in both ways. If you want to become, I don't know, the system, I guess, is general, but I don't know the system in the Netherlands, but at least for Italy, you have to go through really, really difficult exams, tests at national level is something really difficult to go through, and just 20 people per year. And sometimes it's not always, they don't issue the tests every year. So only 20 people in, I don't know how many people that apply. So you can get the difficulty of getting a job if you really want to become a diplomat. For a job at the UN or international organization, for an entry level, at least for me, it wasn't difficult because I applied and I got the response. It's a bit more difficult if you want to get a staff job. So if you want to be more permanent, as the contract is a bit more permanent or kind of more stable, that kind of jobs are a bit difficult to get, but it doesn't exclude that you can get it more easily than other people.
Okay, the next question, I apologize if I butcher your name. I think it's from Praiwal. They ask, any notes on private versus intergovernmental organizations with regards to getting a more richer experience?
Well, I cannot relate with private organizations. I never had an experience in the private sector. I think it depends on what you want to do. I guess both are really self-enriching. Like they enrich you in a different way, but then again, is that different? I don't think so. Maybe there are some way of working that are a bit different, perspective that are a bit different, but I think they are perfect opportunities and platforms to make you grow and to give you the perfect experience, especially at the beginning. I don't have, again, I'm sorry, I don't have an experience on private sector, but I think it's worthwhile. Why not?
Okay, I don't see any more questions here. Is there any more questions from everyone? Anyone want to ask something else? Give it a few seconds.
I can see from the chat that there is a question that maybe I didn't answer from Zap.
Oh yes, I didn't really understand the question, so I messaged him if he could explain it to me, but he said he took it back. But if you wanna answer it, feel free.
Why not? So the issue of merit, I didn't have problems at the university. I don't want to brag, but I got the maximum of grades, and I work myself off. Really, I like to study. I love to study, and I love to learn more and more. I wasn't the first of the class, of course. Don't get me wrong, but I really just kept on studying and did my job, did my tasks, and work in a team if it was necessary. I never had problems with merit in the university. Actually, I think at the university is mostly, sometimes it's a bit not the reality maybe, but I think it's the best platform to apply the merit. To be sure about your merit. I mean, if you really value, you can see it from the university. That's the thing, if you study enough, you will get a good grade. Normally it's like this, or at least that was for me. And then of course there are other problems that I cannot take into consideration now because I didn't experience them, but I think merit is really applicable to university. And I guess after university is a bit less, even though I'm fully supporting the idea of of merit in general, and the possibility of growing just based on your merit.
Okay, we have another question from Julia. She asks, do you recommend the UN courses and UN certifications?
Okay, I don't know exactly what Julia is referring to, but I guess yes. I mean, every workshop, every training, every practical experience that you can get during your studies is something that you have to cherish, and you have to, put yourself in. Don't be afraid, even if it's like a UN course of, I don't know, 5 hours, or a certification on something, just do it. And this, I mean, it cannot be bad for you. Actually, it will just enrich you better. If they are, especially, as I said, as I can see now, available online, if they're not something that you have to pay for, just actually do them. And depends on what you want to do. If you want something, I am working in security, so if you want to do something related in the same field of security as I do, just try to do some certifications on, for example, some security issues. I know that there are some good, really, courses. I can suggest, maybe I can share my email as well, and I can suggest some good courses that I will myself go through. I would like to attend those courses, those workshops, because I think you never stop learning, and so you cannot stop learning. And so everything that is certification courses, training, whatever, just do it.
Okay, and this is the final question. This is from Sigmund. He asks, do you think it would limit your job opportunities in general if you fundamentally disagree with your home country's politics?
Okay. Yes. I fundamentally think that if you're working, and this is a bit extreme what I'm saying, but if you're working in a toxic environment, and actually it's something extreme, but is applicable to every situation. If you're working in a toxic environment, in an environment that you don't like, trust me, your ability of delivering your performance will be affected. And if, as I said before, I don't want to compromise my values for anything. And and that was one of the reasons why I don't want to become a diplomat, This is my opinion, of course. I don't want to generalize. I don't want to just highlight the drawbacks of this particular job, but I would fundamentally not be able to deliver if I don't agree with the choices of my country. Yes, I would say.
All right, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure we've all really appreciated it. I mean, I did at least. Yeah, I hope that this interview has helped everyone know a bit, make this decision a bit easier. Yeah, thank you so much, Camilla, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, really, and bedankt. Tot ziens. Thank you so much.
All right, bye.
Bye.